So what we've seen is a week that looks very, very much like something we've seen before. This feels a whole bunch like 2008 with the collapse of Lehman Brothers and AIG, that week in September that really roiled markets everywhere. It looks a whole lot like September 11th, where financial markets closed for several weeks, and then when they did open up, we saw this tremendous decline in stock prices, and it's left everybody wondering, how is this going to filter out into the economy? And is it going to look like '08, or is it going to look like 2001, where in 2001, even though stock prices declined dramatically, even though there was an uptick in unemployment, in 2001, the real estate industry never really experienced a decline. If you go back and look at the numbers from 2001, house prices continued to go up, and housing market activity continued to stay strong. There was an uninterrupted expansion in housing markets that began in 1991 and went all the way to 2006. So 2008 was an economic crisis that the housing was sort of at the epicenter. It began there and then spread out. My friends, this is fundamentally different. This is a shock to the system that's coming from outside. It has nothing to do with the economy at its origin, but it's emanating into the economy, and it looks like it's going to do it in two ways. It's obviously going to hit the tourism sector hardest, and it's going to hit the oil and gas sector secondarily, as oil prices decline and probably stay there for, I would guess, about 6 months for the entire thing to sort of work its way through the system. So, what does it mean for tourism in the U.S. to decline dramatically? Well, tourism accounts for 1% of U.S. GDP. That's how big the sector is. So we live in a $22 trillion economy. Of that $22 trillion economy, $2 trillion a year is tourism and travel related. So what that means is if all tourism stops for a year, and I don't think that's what we're looking at, but if it were to stop for a year, then suddenly you'd have a situation where $2 trillion of GDP would just be gone. That's terrible, and it takes a humongous human toll on the workers who work in that sector, who tend to be some of the lowest paid in our society. That's absolutely true. But please keep it in perspective. This is not the same as '08, where the shock started in real estate, which was a sector that accounted for 5% of GDP. Real estate accounts for 5% of GDP when you think of new construction, remodeling, and broker fees. That's how we measure the sector. That's 5% of GDP, on top of the fact that 2/3 of Americans own their own home. So everybody's invested in that sector. So the point is, this is not an '08. The point is, this is more like a 2001. When 9/11 happened, the economy was already in recession. Our economy was not in recession when this began. And when 9/11 happened, and it was a tremendous shock to financial markets, the U.S. economy was recovering by November. So from September to November, the economy began to recover. And I think this is going to look much like that. This is really just, at this point, I think, a crisis of confidence. I think Americans are looking for, how is this going to play out, and what steps is our government going to take to contain it? And not just the health damage, but the economic damage. And there are absolutely things that can be done. You can very quickly put $1,000 or $2,000 into the hands of every service sector worker in this country. You can do that, and if interest rates stay low, and they're going to, that's basically free money. There are things that can be done to stop the economic pain, and it's just a question of how quickly can our government work to make that happen. So, that's my sort of opening remarks. I think it's a time for real awareness and a real time to turn to your business and hold people's hands. But in terms of the effect that it has on real estate, my guess is when you look back, you won't even see it in the numbers, because this is a 2001 experience, not a 2008 experience.